Hi, thanks for joining me today. I'm Emmanuel Breweje and I'm here to present the findings of my research project titled The Impact of Corruption on Governance in Ghana. So in this presentation, I'll take you through the introduction, research questions, methods, inferential tests, research results, and discussion of the finding. Once again, the topic for this project is the impact of corruption on governance in Ghana, and I'll explore the relationship between democracy, police trust, and corruption levels. So why this study? This study aims to investigate whether the level of corruption in Ghana has an impact on the governance of the country, and it will also examine how corruption influences democratic institutions, and also to fill the gap in existing literature by focusing on the Ghanaian context. And I went to literature review to find out what others have said about this topic. The review reveals that corruption erodes democratic institutions and compromises the accountability of public officials, that's by Adefusu in 2018. Also, police trust play a pivotal role in tackling corruption. When citizens have confidence in the police force, they are likely to report corruption incidents and cooperate with the law enforcement agencies, that's by Comey. Also, by Towa in 2019, he emphasized the negative consequences of corruption on economic growth in Ghana. He highlighted the need for robust anti-corruption measures to create environments conducive to sustainable development. The main research question that guided this study is, does the level of corruption in Ghana have an impact on governance in the country? I explored this question by analyzing two associations related to this question. Association 1 is the extent of democracy in Ghana associated with the level of corruption in the country, and the variables involved are level of corruption and the extent of democracy. Association 2, does the level of corruption in Ghana influence people's trust in the police? And the variables involved are level of corruption and trust police. Sampling. The dataset used in this study is the Run 8 Afrobarometer survey for Ghana. The sampling method used in sampling the data is a stratified multi-stage sampling design. The data was collated in 2021 with a sample size of 2,400 with plus or minus 2.0 margin of error. The method used to measure the selected variables of interest was based on questions presented to respondents and their perception which align with the category levels under each variable. For the extent of democracy in Ghana, some categories presented to respondents include not a democracy with major problems, a democracy but with minor problems, and a full democracy. For level of corruption, the categories were increased a lot, stayed the same, decreased a lot, and people's trust in the police was as follows. The inferential test used to test the associations of this study is chi-square test of independence. All variables involved in this association are categorical as shown on the screen, making a chi-square the appropriate inferential test. For association 1, I state my null and alternative hypothesis as follows. Null hypothesis. There is no relationship between the level of corruption and the extent of democracy. Alternative hypothesis. There is a relationship between the level of corruption and the extent of democracy. Similar to association 1, the variables in association 2 are also categorical and hence chi-square test was used. The null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis are as follows. Null hypothesis. There is no relationship between the level of corruption and the trust people have in the police. Alternative hypothesis. There is a relationship between the level of corruption and the trust people have in the police. Based on the data collected from the variables, a bivariate graph was created using R and R Studio to visualize the associations. From the graph of association 1, it can be inferred that the level of corruption have effect on the extent of democracy. Analyzing from the full democracy level, as the level of corruption decreases from increase a lot to decrease a lot, the extent of democracy for the full democracy level increases from 20% to almost 60%. This suggests an association between the level of corruption and the extent of democracy. From association 2, we can also observe from the lot level of police trust that as the level of corruption decreases, people tend to have more trust in the police. Results from the chi-square test. For association 1, the chi-square test revealed a chi-square value of 55.475, a degree of freedom of 6, and a p-value of 3.717 times e raised to the power minus 10. This gives enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative hypothesis that there is a relationship between the level of corruption and the extent of democracy. The p-value less than 0.001 falls outside the 99% confidence interval, indicating a statistically significant association between corruption and the extent of democracy. Also, for association 2, the results of the chi-square test is displayed on the screen. A p-value of 3.376 times e raised to the power minus 15, less than 0.01 significant level, indicates a highly significant association between the level of corruption and police trust. Based on the results, there is enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative hypothesis that there is a relationship between the level of corruption and the trust people have in the police. Post-hoc tests were conducted to further analyze the association between the three levels of the categorical explanatory variable. The test produced highly significant values with p-values of 2.2e raised to the power minus 16. A p-value of less than 0.01 for all pairs of levels indicates significant difference between the levels of corruption. Varying impacts of corruption on democracy and people's trust in the police. Lessons from the study. This study provides evidence of association between the level of corruption and the extent of democracy and people's trust in the police in Ghana. It suggests that the level of corruption may have an impact on governance in Ghana by influencing the level of democracy and public trust in the police force. Limitations. The study relies on self-reported survey data, which may be subjected to response biases and measurements of error. Also, the findings are specific to the context of Ghana and may not be able to apply in other countries. Suggestions. Further research can be built upon this study by employing longitudinal studies and comparative analysis across different countries to provide valuable insight into the complex dynamic of the topic. Also, further research will be necessary to explore how corruption affects democracy, governance, and public trust. Thank you.